everyone, my name is Jordan and today I'm going to be doing a book review of Empire of the Vampire by Jay Kistoff. Jay Kistoff happens to be one of my favorite authors. I absolutely love his Nevernight Chronicles, and I think my favorite series by him is actually his first series, which I feel like is not talked about enough on BookTube, and that is the Lotus War trilogy. I believe it is his first series that he ever wrote, and he really didn't get popular until he wrote the Illuminae Files with, Amy Kaufman, which I actually haven't even read that one yet, but I plan to eventually. But I just am a big fan of his adult fantasies because they tend to be darker, richer. The only other YA book by him that I've attempted to read was Lifelike, and it was just okay. It was like, I didn't get into it. I didn't finish the book. I didn't finish the series. Like I said, I just prefer his adult dark fantasies, and this book definitely did not disappoint. It lived up to the hype in my opinion, and I cannot wait till the sequel. This is definitely the first book in a series. I wasn't sure. I guess it does say right on the cover book 1, but when going into it, I didn't know if this was a series or if this was a standalone fantasy, but I'm glad that it's a series, and I can't wait to continue. Of course, we'll have to wait like a year, hopefully at the most. Jay Kistoff, do not become one of those authors that takes years and years to come out with your sequels. But okay, so this, like I said, it's adult. Don't let the word vampire fool you. This isn't like some paranormal romance or anything. This is an epic fantasy, full-blown like medieval fantasy. I guess sometimes when you think of vampires, you think of like urban fantasy or paranormal like romances and stuff, and it's nothing like that. This reads just like an epic fantasy. Like I said, in medieval times. It's just instead of dragons or Trollocs, I'm currently reading the first book in the Wheel of Time, so I'm like trying to think of creatures, fantasy creatures, and Trollocs is from the Wheel of Time. But so just the main bad guys in here are vampires instead of traditional fantasy creatures. So basically we follow a guy, Gabriel de Leon. He is a Silversaint, which is half vampire, half human, and these guys basically dedicate their lives to God and fighting vampires. Silversaints, basically their birth is a sin, and so but by becoming a Silversaint and dedicating their lives to fighting vampires, you're sort of like forgiven, and I don't know if they still like get to go to heaven, or I don't know exactly how that works, but they're still in God's favor since they are on God's side fighting his war, blah blah blah. So as a Silversaint, he has a lot of different abilities. Same as vampires, he's stronger, not quite as strong as vampires, but definitely stronger than humans. That's cool thing about the vampires in this world is that different bloodlines have different abilities, so depending on who his father is, determines what his ability is, but he is told that he doesn't have one of these abilities. But yeah, so different vampires can have different abilities, such as I think they can read people's minds, or some have like this extra tough skin. Their skin is almost like marble, or they're just extra hard to kill. They're just tougher. And there's some other ones too that I can't think of off the top of my head right now. But this book actually starts off, well, I guess it would technically be present day, where Gabriel de Leon is actually caught by vampires, and he's like in a prison cell, and this one vampire actually comes to him to interview him and get him his life story, because he is a very famous, well-known Silversaint. He's known to be one of the best Silversaints. So this vampire wants to chronicle his story, write it down. And so that's how this story is told. Gabriel de Leon is telling his life story to this vampire, and so it's actually kind of like weird when you're first getting into the book, because it's like the entire book is almost written in quotations because he's telling his story to this vampire, and a lot of times this stupid fly keeps flying around. And a lot of times the vampire will kind of pop in and like make comments, and they'll have like banter between these two. So the entire story that Gabriel is telling is actually in quotation. So it's kind of like, It was like just a minor adjustment. It's not really confusing, but like when you first do it, you're like, oh, how is this gonna work? Or when you first start reading it, but it was really easy. It's not like confusing or complicating it. At least I didn't think so. So he basically jumps back and forth between 2 time periods when he's telling his story. One is when he's first discovering what he is and, you know, what a Silversaint is, learning how to become a Silversaint, how to fight vampires and such. And then he jumps back and forth between that time period and also when he's older. I think he's like in his mid-30s or something in that time period, when he's already a full-fledged Silversaint and pretty strong at that point, knows what he's doing, and he ends up running into an old friend, and she wants his help to find the Holy Grail. And the Holy Grail is like this myth, legend that is supposed to help solve their night problem, which I forgot to mention. Sorry. So apparently something happened where the sun is like gone. It hasn't set in, I think it says in the inside flap. It's been 27 long years since the last sunrise. And no one really knows how or why it happened. But that's basically when vampires started taking over, because now they don't have to worry about the sun burning him to a crisp. But yeah, so this friend of his wants him to help discover this Holy Grail, which is supposed to bring the sun back, end that whole debacle. And so we're jumping back and forth. He kind of skips back and forth, so it's not just all in chronological order. And there's 2 very distinct Gabriels. When he's young, he's very religious. He believes in his mission as a Silversaint. He believes in God. He believes in fate and all these things. But then in the chapters when he's older, he's not. You can tell he's lost his faith. He's very bitter. He doesn't believe. He's not even like as he's more morally gray, you know, where in the beginning, you know, in his younger self is much more heroic. He's very prideful and wants to basically be a hero, even though everyone keeps telling him he's not a hero. You know, he wants to save people. He wants to, you know, he cares about innocent human beings. But then you jump to his older self and he's like literally shooting other humans to give himself advantage in a fight. Like, who is this guy? He's like total flip-flop. But so it makes you question, okay, what happened between then and now to turn him this way? The vampires themselves are very unique. Like I said, there are the different bloodlines which give different abilities, but also what's really cool about the vampires in this series is that like how they turn, or if they turn. So when you it's not very specific. They don't actually specifically say how you turn a vampire. I don't know if it's just a bite, or if if a vampire has to bleed you dry. I'm not sure. They don't really specifically say that I remember, but basically once you die after being attacked by a vampire, there's a chance that you'll turn. There's no guarantee. So it's not like, oh, I love you, let's live forever and be vampires. There's no guarantee that you're gonna come back as a vampire. You could just stay dead. Depending on how long your body is dead before it comes back is going to determine what kind of vampire you are. So there are like various different states. There are like the perfect, really strong vampires. They're completely like whole and intact. But then the ones that have been rotting for a while, they're more like half-crazed zombies than vampires, really. Like their mind is gone and they're just bloodthirsty monsters. And actually the regular vampires that still have their mind intact have basically just let these, I think they call them, or some people call them wretches or something like that, but they let these things, basically, they're using them as their army to help kill off the humans. Very interesting. It's very dark. The beginning is a little slow, but it picks up and it's very interesting. It's very dark. In fact, if any of you guys have ever watched I believe it's a Netflix original show. I think it's Netflix original, but it is on Netflix, and it is Castlevania. It's an animated TV show. about Dracula. Dracula like falls in love with a human and then she ends up dying at the hands of other humans, so he basically is like, I'm gonna kill all humans because you killed the love of my life. And it's a very dark animated TV show, and it just, the vibes I got from that show are very similar to the vibes that I got from this, just the very dark gothic setting, just how evil the vampires are. That's another thing, I don't think I've ever actually read a book with vampires where vampires were fully like evil. This isn't like humans and vampires falling in love or anything like that, you know? It's not like we haven't run into any like good vampires. Like, it's pretty much just all vampires are all bad. Or at least so far in this first book, who knows. So I really love this book. I really enjoyed it. Just main key thing, this is an adult book. It is not YA. It is dark, it is bloody, it is violent, there are sexual scenes and comments, so beware of that. Foul language, all that stuff. Definitely not a YA book, so just keep that in mind. But I love this book. I believe I gave it 5 stars, and I'm so excited to continue. I hate that I have to wait till next year. It better be no longer than next year. So if any of you guys have read this book, let me know. If you're excited to read this book, let me know as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Alright, that is it for this review. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys next time. Goodbye.